Three older boys, one little kid. His bag held just out of reach. He kept jumping for it anyway. 5 years old, arms up, coming down empty every single time. Every time he jumped, they lifted it higher. Every time he came down empty, they laughed louder. He was too small. His arms weren't long enough. No matter how hard he tried, there was no way he was ever going to reach that bag. He was a 5-year-old boy jumping against a 17-year-old who had 3 inches and 100 pounds on him. But he kept jumping. His eyes were wet and his face was red, but he was still trying, still going up on his toes, still reaching with both hands every single time, like maybe this jump would be different. That was the worst part, not the laughing, not the bag in the air. The fact that this little boy kept trying even when there was no way he could win. People were walking past on both sides, a man with shopping bags, a woman with a stroller, 2 teenagers, a couple, an older man. All of them passed within 10 feet of it. Every single one of them saw it. Not one of them stopped. The biggest boy crouched down, got right in the little boy's face, close enough that the kid leaned back against the wall. He said something, quiet, just for him. The little boy's arms came down. He stopped reaching. He just stood there, back flat against the wall, arms at his sides, eyes on the ground. I was about 12 feet away. I saw his face the moment his arms dropped. I've never forgotten it. The 3 boys dropped his bag on the ground and started going through it. Right there, on a busy street, in front of everyone, and the boy just stood there. He had stopped fighting. He was just waiting for it to be over. That was when I saw the man sitting at the edge of the food stall. He wasn't eating. He wasn't looking away. He was watching, completely still. While every other person on that sidewalk found somewhere else to look, this man was watching the wall, watching the boy, not moving, not looking away. One of the older boys noticed him and looked over. Just for a second. Then he looked away. But something had already changed. The boy's name was Ethan. 5 years old. He came to this street twice a week, always the same route, always to meet his older sister who finished her shift at a food stall 3 blocks down. He knew this street well. He felt safe here. He had no reason to be afraid of it. The 3 boys near the corner changed that. The one in front was Marco Vega, 17 years old, big for his age and comfortable with it. He knew Ethan's family. He had a problem with Ethan's older brother. Something that had been building for weeks. Ethan had nothing to do with any of it, but Ethan was 5 years old and easy to find. He had been waiting for this boy specifically. Ethan just didn't know that yet. So Ethan became the message. Marco wasn't loud about it. He wasn't wild or out of control. That was the thing that made him dangerous. He was calm. He chose this. He waited near the corner, watched Ethan come down the street alone, and let the boy walk right into it. The bag went up on the second exchange of words. Ethan reached for it 4 times before his arms finally dropped. Now the bag was open on the ground. Marco was crouched over it, completely unhurried, pulling things out one at a time. A water bottle, a small handkerchief, a plastic pencil case with a cartoon printed on the lid. He placed each one on the pavement like he was sorting through garbage. Like the boy standing 2 feet away watching him didn't matter at all. He took his time. He looked at each item before setting it down. He said something to his friend. His friend kicked the pencil case lightly with the side of his shoe. It scraped across the pavement and stopped near the wall. Ethan watched it slide. He didn't move to pick it up, didn't say anything. His hands were pressed flat against the wall behind him. His chin was down. He had completely stopped looking up. Whatever the biggest boy had said to him when he crouched down close, it had worked. The boy who had been jumping and reaching a minute ago was gone. What was left was a 5-year-old standing perfectly still, pressed back against the wall, making himself as small as possible, waiting for it to be over. The crowd kept moving around all of it like it wasn't there. A man with shopping bags walked straight past without slowing down. 2 teenagers across the street looked over for a moment. One of them said something to the other. And then they kept walking. A woman near a hardware store had stopped. She was standing still with her hand on her bag strap, her weight slightly forward, But she didn't move toward the wall. She stayed where she was. Everyone on that sidewalk saw what was happening. Not one person moved toward it. Marco reached into the bag one more time. What he pulled out next was the thing that changed everything. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. He opened it slowly, looked at it, held it up so his friends could see. It was a drawing. Crayon. An animal with 4 legs, orange and brown, the lines going outside the borders the way they do when a 5-year-old draws. Something Ethan had made at school. Marco's friend laughed. Marco tilted the drawing slightly, looking at it like it was the most worthless thing he'd ever seen. Then dropped it. It landed on the pavement face up. Ethan saw it land. His jaw tightened. His hands pressed harder against the wall. He didn't look up, but he saw it. He knew exactly what it was. Now the man at the food stall set down his chopsticks. He had been sitting there for 20 minutes. Plain white t-shirt, dark trousers. Nothing about him stood out. He was compact, not big, not small. The kind of person who takes up exactly as much space as he needs, and no more. The kind of person a crowd walks past without a second look. But right now, he was the only person in the immediate area who was looking directly at the wall. Everyone else had found somewhere else to look. The man at the next cart was suddenly very focused on his food. The people on the bench nearby were looking at the street in the other direction. A woman walking past had turned her head just slightly, enough to see without committing to seeing. This man had not done any of that. He was looking at the wall, at the 3 boys, at Ethan pressed against the bricks. He had been looking at it since the moment it started. He wasn't doing it loudly. There was nothing aggressive or tense about the way he was sitting. He was just watching. Clearly, directly, like a person who had decided what they were looking at and had no reason to pretend otherwise. His food was half-eaten and cold beside him. He had put down his chopsticks the moment Ethan's arms dropped. He hadn't stood up yet. He was still, patient, watching. The woman sitting 2 seats away from him had noticed. She glanced sideways at him, then at the wall, then back at him. Then she shifted in her seat and looked somewhere else. He didn't move. Marco stood up from the bag. He stretched his arms above his head, relaxed, like a man who had just finished a task. He reached down and picked up the drawing from the pavement, held it out toward Ethan, just high enough that the boy would have to reach for it. Same game, different object. "You want this back?" Ethan's eyes came up. He looked at the drawing, his hands lifted slightly off the wall. Then stopped. He wanted it. He had made it for his sister. He had carried it carefully all the way here in his bag. He wanted it back badly enough that his whole body showed it. And then, without planning to, his eyes moved left, to the man at the food stall. The man was already looking at him. He didn't nod, didn't smile, didn't do anything. He just looked back at the boy. Steady, calm, completely present. And he didn't look away. Ethan turned back to face Marco. Marco had seen the boy's eyes move. He followed the direction, found the man at the bench watching him. He held the look for a moment. Something shifted in Marco's face, something fast, almost invisible. The small change that happens when a person realizes a situation has something in it they didn't see before, not fear, not panic. Just a quick, quiet recalculation. He turned back to Ethan, still holding the drawing. That was when the man stood up. No hurry, no drama. He just stood, left his food on the bench, stepped off the platform, and walked. Even pace, calm, direct. He stopped 4 feet from Marco. Marco turned to face him fully. He looked the man over. Saw someone smaller than him, lighter, quiet, a plain white t-shirt, dark trousers, no expression on his face that suggested anything at all. Marco had been in enough situations to read people quickly. He looked at this man and saw nothing that worried him. He looked at the man. The man looked back. Neither of them moved. A few seconds passed. The immediate crowd had gone quiet without deciding to. Conversations dropped off. Movement slowed. The people nearby weren't pretending anymore. They were just watching, openly, waiting. Somewhere to the side, a metal cartwheel rolled across a crack in the pavement. One short sound, Then nothing. Marco started to speak. "You need to—" He stopped. Something was wrong, not with the words, with what was underneath them. Some note of certainty he reached for and didn't find. He heard it happening and couldn't stop it. He tried again. "This isn't your—" He stopped again. Nobody standing there understood what had just happened. Marco didn't either. The man had not moved, had not spoken, had not changed a single thing about the way he was standing. He had done nothing. That was what Marco couldn't explain. He had good instincts, years of experience reading people, reading rooms, knowing within seconds whether something was dangerous or whether it wasn't. He had never been wrong about it, not in any way that cost him. He looked at this man, and something in those instincts sent a signal he couldn't name and couldn't find the source of, and it had stopped him twice in under 5 seconds. He covered it quickly, turned to his friends, said something low. One of them laughed. Marco laughed with him, short, sharp, the kind of laugh that tells everyone watching, "Nothing has changed. I'm still the one in control here." He turned back. The man was still there, same 4 feet, same stillness, same expression, or rather, no expression, like the laugh hadn't reached him, like nothing Marco had done in the past 30 seconds had landed anywhere at all. Marco knew how to handle aggression. He knew how to handle someone squaring up, making it obvious what was about to happen. He had faced bigger. He had faced louder. He knew what to do with all of that. This was none of that. This was a man standing 4 feet away who hadn't spoken, hadn't moved, hadn't changed a single thing. And Marco had been stopped mid-sentence twice, and still couldn't explain why. That didn't fit anything he knew. It had no place in any situation he had been in before. He looked at the man one more time. Then he laughed, turned to his friends, said something. They laughed too, and he walked away. Just like that, bag on the ground, drawing on the pavement. He turned and walked. The crowd shifted. Someone nearby exhaled. A woman who had been watching turned back to her food. For about 4 seconds, it felt like it was over. Then Marco stopped. He turned around. Across the street, Carol Simmons had taken 3 steps forward. She was a school teacher, 31 years old. She had seen Marco near the school gates twice in the past month and had reported it. She had been told there was nothing to be done. Tonight she was walking home and had not planned to be on this street at all. She had taken 3 steps forward without deciding to. Then she caught herself, stopped. She stood there, weight forward, hand on her bag strap, halfway between moving and not moving. She stayed like that. She would think about those 3 steps for a long time afterward. Near the food cart, a woman exhaled. A man had set down his takeaway without realizing it. A small group of people who had been walking past had stopped and turned. Nobody was pretending anymore. They were all watching, openly, quietly, waiting for what happened next. Then Marco moved, not toward the man. He stepped sideways, back to Ethan. He held the drawing up right in front of the boy's face. "You want this back?" Ethan looked at it. He could see the orange legs, the brown body, the crayon going outside the lines the way it always did because he was still learning how to keep it inside. He had made this 2 days ago at school. His teacher had put it on the board before he took it down to bring home to his sister. His hands came up slightly from his sides, then stopped. His eyes went to the man one more time, 4 feet away, still standing there, not going anywhere. Marco watched the boy look at the man again. He turned and shoved the man, hard, both hands flat against his chest. The man's back foot slid on the pavement. He moved back, not far, but he moved. His weight shifted. Behind him, his container fell off the bench, hit the ground. The lid came off. Someone in the crowd pulled back. A man near the cart said something sharp and low. Carol Simmons took one more step forward, then stopped. She thought it was over. Most people standing there thought the same thing. He didn't look at Marco. He looked at the container on the ground. 1 full second. He looked at the noodles on the pavement, his quiet evening, his food, the small ordinary thing that had been interrupted. And something passed across his face that was not anger. It was something more settled than anger. something that had made a decision. Then he looked up. Marco swung, hard, fast, the kind of punch that had always landed, always worked, without exception. The man wasn't there. One small step to the side, barely anything, and the punch went through air. Marco's weight kept going forward, past where he expected to stop. His balance was gone before he could get it back. It lasted 8 seconds. One hand caught Marco's wrist, not grabbing, just redirecting. One turn, small and precise. Marco's own weight kept moving in the direction it was already going, and there was nothing to stop it. Marco went down on one knee, hard on the pavement. He wasn't thrown. He was guided, exactly, deliberately, to the ground. Every person watching felt the difference, even if they couldn't explain it. 2 seconds on the ground. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The whole street was waiting to see what he did next. Then he was up, breathing hard, eyes scanning. The confidence that had been sitting in his face for the past 20 minutes was gone. He was calculating now, trying to work out what had happened, where it had gone wrong, how something that small and quiet had put him on the ground that fast. The man stepped back, returned to exactly 4 feet. The crowd was silent. Not the sound of shock, real silence. The kind that settles when people have seen something they weren't prepared for and don't have words for yet. No one was talking. No one was moving. The woman near the cart was standing still. The man who had put down his food was still staring at the spot on the pavement where Marco had landed. Everyone was looking at the man in the white t-shirt. He had stepped back to exactly 4 feet. Same position as before, like that was the place he had picked, and he was simply returning to it. Carol Simmons had both hands over her mouth. She had moved forward during all of it without knowing when. She was closer to the wall than she had been at the start. Marco's 2 friends had stepped back. Both of them were looking at Marco, not the man, waiting. Marco was the one who always knew what to do next. He didn't look like he knew right now. He said nothing. He did not look at the man. He did not look at Ethan. He walked away. His friends followed without a word. The 3 of them turned the corner at the end of the block and were gone. The street stayed quiet for a few more seconds. Then someone spoke. Something short, near the cart. Someone else answered. Then more voices, overlapping, the whole block coming back to life at once. Within a minute, it was loud again, normal again. People moving, carts running, the evening continuing like nothing had interrupted it. The man walked back to the bench. He picked up his container, looked at what was left inside it, set it back down, and sat. He didn't look at the crowd, didn't look at anyone who was looking at him. He just sat. Ethan was still against the wall. He hadn't moved through any of it. He had watched everything from 3 feet away. The man stepping forward, Marco going down, Marco walking away, and he had stayed exactly where he was. Back to the bricks, hands at his sides. The drawing was still on the ground, face up, orange and brown, the crayon lines going where they went. The man looked at the boy. Ethan looked back. Neither of them said anything. Then Ethan pushed off the wall. He walked over and stood in front of the man, close, the way small children stand when they feel safe. He looked up. He said something, 1 word, maybe 2, quiet enough that no one nearby could hear it. Carol Simmons was the closest person on the street. She was paying attention. She thought she caught the edge of it. She still isn't sure what he said. The man looked at Ethan for a moment. Then he nodded once. Ethan turned around. He crouched down and picked up the drawing, looked at it for just a second, the orange legs, the lines he knew, then folded it back along the crease that was already there, put it in his bag, then the pencil case, then the water bottle, each thing back where it belonged. He zipped the bag, put it on his back, walked toward his sister's stall without looking back. The man watched him go. When the boy turned the corner and disappeared, the man looked back down at the container in his hands. The street was loud again. The carts were moving. Someone was laughing at something far down the block. He looked at the container for a moment. Then he looked back down at it. Marco walked fast for the first few blocks. His friends kept up and kept quiet. They knew the kind of silence he was carrying. They left it alone. He slowed down eventually. 3 weeks later, he knocked on a door 4 streets from his own. Ethan's older brother answered. Marco talked. The brother stood in the doorway and listened without saying much and without closing the door either. When it was done, Marco walked home. Something had shifted. It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, in small ways, over the weeks that followed. He stopped doing certain things. He stopped going to certain places. Not because he had lost a fight. He had lost fights before. That had never changed anything. It was something else. Something about standing 4 feet from a man who hadn't raised his voice, hadn't threatened, hadn't even changed his expression, and still losing 2 sentences before anything physical happened. That stayed with Marco in a way he couldn't shake and didn't talk about. He just started taking up a little less space. Carol Simmons saw the man once more, about 4 months later. She was on the opposite side of the street. He was moving through the crowd in the other direction. She didn't go over. She didn't know what she would have said. She had thought about July 23rd more than she expected to, about the 3 steps she took forward without deciding to, about stopping herself. That fall, she made some changes in her classroom, small ones. The way she checked in with her students at the start of each week, the way she watched kids walk in on Monday mornings, which ones came in quiet, which ones came in with something behind their eyes. Nothing formal, no announcement. She just changed it. Ethan grew up on those same streets. Years later, someone who knew him mentioned that he kept something in a folder at home, a folded piece of paper, worn soft along the creases, a crayon drawing, an animal, orange and brown, the lines going outside the borders the way they do when a 5-year-old draws. He never explained it to anyone. He just never threw it away.